Hello. This video from the Computer Department Incorporated will go over each step involved in setting up support files, special functions, management functions, and interest rate functions. All these can be found in the Maintenance tab on the main screen of DLS. The top 6 support files are tables that feed drop-down lists that the user can select from in different parts of the program. All these forms function in the same basic way. So we will use this form from Family Group as an example of how to enter the data into all 6 of these files. You will see 1 or 2 fields for each record. Using this form for Family Group, you can see that there are 2 in this list. The first column is the short code to represent the second field name. Once you enter the 2 fields, you can click out of the record to save it, or click on the pencil on the far left where the arrow is currently at in this example. To add a new record, go to the bottom of the form and click on the asterisk button on the record navigation bar. If you need to delete a record, then select it by clicking on the box on the far left side to put an arrow and then click on the delete button. You must have rights to delete in order to delete any record in DLS. Once you have finished making your list, exit the form by clicking on the close button. The top 6 lists are very basic lists for drop-down fields. Location type is used to assign the type of location that each record is. These can be things like parish, school, priest, or any other type that you may have. Family group is similar in that you can assign a location into a family group or region. The family group has 2 fields for a family code and then a name. Solution set type can be assigned to a location to identify it for your needs. Account classification and category lists are to provide those with 2 different levels of classification, and then category can work as a sub-classification. Account restrictions are primarily used for general information about the restrictions that may be on the account, except for the restriction named Auto in all caps. With the switch in the DLS Financials configuration form on the Accounts tab for Deposit section, it will cause DLS to automatically add any deposits for that account into the restricted amount field. All of these lists are used to make it easier to filter data in reports to show only specific types of locations or accounts in the data that is being reported on. The next 5 items are more complicated and are used with special list forms within DLS. The first one is standard lookup number for accounts. Unlike all the other support files shown so far, this button will not show up unless you have turned on the Use Standard Lookup Numbers option in the DLS Financials configuration form on the Configuration tab in the Account Maintenance section. These lookup numbers are used for dioceses that have account lookup numbers that are used for specific reasons. There are 3 fields for each record, with the first one being the type of account that it should show up in. Your choices are Deposit, Loans, and if you have DLS+, Invest accounts. The next field will be used in the account's lookup number field, and the description field will be used in the account's description field when selected. Standard transaction descriptions are a list of often used transaction descriptions. The first field is for the type of account that it should show up in. Your choices are Deposit, Loans, and if you have DLS+, Invest accounts. But this list has one more choice of all accounts. When this is selected, it will show up in the drop-down list for every account type. The other field is the actual transaction description that will be used. While you can put short descriptions, the purpose of this list was to make it for longer descriptions. Items like deposit, withdraw, payment, draw, and adjustment are used by the Auto Description button on the transaction form. Those auto descriptions are used in the transaction comment field when it is left blank when creating the transaction. One of the features of DLS is that you can select a third party to pay when making deposit withdrawals or loan draws. The button Third Party Payees List is where you will create a list of those parties that you will want to show in DLS that they were paid directly and with the accounting interface have the checks printed out to them. When you click on the button, then the list will show up showing all the current vendors that you have set up. When you highlight a record by clicking on it, the Edit and Delete buttons will become available to you. Delete is only shown when you have the rights to delete from DLS. Edit will open the record in the form so that you can change the information, but the Add button will open the form below to add a new record. The lookup number is used within DLS to connect this vendor to a transaction. It can be the same as the accounting system's actual vendor number, which is in the next field. The vendor number from the accounting system must be in the accounting ID field. Make sure that you enter the vendor's name and location information into the record. Only the number fields and the name are required to save the record, but the location information can be handy if there are more than one location for the same company. Click on the Save button to save the record to the list, or if you decide not to save the record, click on the Close Cancel button. DLS has hundreds of reports that you can use. Some are variations of the same report, and others may be special reports that only a few dioceses use. For this reason, you can define your location's report menu to show only the ones that you actually need or use. Just understand that at any time you can add other reports that you may need later. The Build Reports menu form shows the list of report types that you can select reports for. Account types will be for reports that contain only information for that account type, although some reports may state in their title that they also contain information about other account types in the report. Change the report type to move between the different report menus for each type. The location type is for location reports or reports that print to provide information about all the account types. Reports, like statements, are in this area. On the left side of the form is the list of reports, but available for you to add. Highlighting the report name in this list will provide a description of what information is included in the report. Double-click on the Master List report, and it will move it to your report list on the right side of the form. Highlighting the report name in your report list will provide a description of what information is included in the report as well. Notice the arrows above the description, which points to the list form which the description is about. Double-click on your menu list report and it will move it back to the master report list on the left side of the form. Once you have finished creating all your report menus, click on the Close button to exit the form. The menu is saved every time you double-click on a report to move it. The GL description list is used so that reports that print the GL numbers will also print the description of what that GL number is used for in the accounting system, will print with it. This is handy for people that don't know what each GL number stands for. In the first column, simply put the GL number in the same format that you use in DLS and enter the description in the second column in simple words. Investment portfolios, which is only seen if you have DLS Plus, are where you will set up each of the investments that the locations can deposit money into. The current investments are in the list shown on the top of the screen, and if you highlight one of them, the Edit and Delete buttons, if you have permission to delete, will turn on. Clicking on the Delete button will remove the record from the system, but only if there are no locations invested into. You can only delete new records before it has any value. Once a location opens an account for this portfolio, it will not allow you to delete it. Double-clicking on the portfolio's name or clicking on the Edit button will open the form to edit the account. Not all fields are available during edit mode. The Add button will open the form so that you can create a new investment fund. The description is a required field and is used to describe what the fund is made of. Words like conservative, low risk, and high risk will help describe the chances of the fund making money. The begin date is the date that the fund is available for locations to invest into. No transactions can be made before this date. Depending on your rules, you may want to enter the days open, which is the number of days after evaluation that the location is allowed to purchase or sell shares. This is to limit the ability for locations to change their portion of the profits or losses if the market suddenly shifts before evaluation happens. 0 means that there is no limits as to when investments and sale can happen. Current share value is the value each share currently has based upon the last valuation. This value typically starts with $1, but if you currently have a portfolio that locations are invested in and are just adding it to DLS, then enter the actual per-share value the portfolio has. Valuation period is how often you plan to enter a valuation to disperse the profits and losses, dividends, and fees. Monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually are your options. The GL number fields here are used as the defaults for the new investments that the locations create using this fund. You are able to change any of these numbers when the location investment is created. The memo fields in the lower left are used to enter the terms that you are offering the locations who invest with this portfolio, and then the other field is for any other general notes. Click on the Save button to save the record that you see, or click on Close Cancel button to exit the form without saving any of the information entered. Finally, there is the DLSOnline users list. This area can be reached through the Maintenance tab or the Locations tab. Coming through the Locations tab will have the filter already set to the location that you were working on. But through Maintenance, you have access to all online users and can select the filter in the top right of the form to the location you want to work in. Since there could be a lot of users, the Find field in the top left area of the form allows you to enter any series of characters that could be in the name or ID fields to limit the list to those records that contain the value in this field. Once you have the user on the list, highlight it by clicking on the record, and you will see the locations that the user has access to in the list on the right. It will also show it the user has permission to make transaction requests, or if they can locally approve requests. Highlighting the user will also turn on the Edit, and, if you have permission, the Delete button. Clicking on the Delete button will remove the user from the user list as well as from all locations. Double-clicking on the user record will be the same as clicking on the Edit button and open the form for the user to edit. The Add button will open the form for adding a new user. The top 5 fields are required to be completed before the record can be saved. The user ID must be unique to your diocese. If you enter an ID that has already been used, you will be asked if you want to edit that user or try a different user ID. If you choose to edit the current user, then the record will be filled in and the form will change to the edit mode. While DLS support can create a unique general user ID for each location to help you get started, it is advisable to not let more than one person use the same ID. When users first log in, they will need to change their profile to enter their real name and email address. Both are needed for the password reset if they forget their password. Also, the email address is used for DLS to email the users and needs to be sent to the correct person. Master user is a special classification that will result in this user having access to every location's accounts. If you use DLSOnline Plus, they will not have any rights to do transaction requests. For those users that you will need to create a second user ID that is just for the locations that they have permission to do transaction requests so that you can configure their rights for each location. There is no master user that also has rights to transactions requests for all locations. The next 2 options are used to control the user's access. The first is Block All Online Access, which when checked, the user will not be able to log in until they contact you. This is the switch that gets set when a user has not logged in within the inactivity period set in DLS Financials configuration in the DLSOnline tab. The other option, the Force Password Change. It is used to do just that. Check this option, and the next time the user logs in, they will be taken to the Change Password form. Typically, this is set on when you first create a new user and give them an easy password to get started, and you need them to change it when they first log in. On the right side of the form is the list of locations in the system that you can double-click on to move into their allowed access list that you see under the user's profile. If you double-click the location in this list, it will remove their access to that location. Click on the Save button to save the record, and if you decide to cancel the changes, click on the Close Cancel button to exit the form without saving. Let's move back to the user list form at the top of your screen. If you are using DLSOnline Plus, you can double-click on a location where the user has permission to enter. This will bring up the user rights form for the highlighted user at this location. The Allow Transactions option can't be changed, as it is only an information-only field to show that you have allowed at least one transaction type in the options below. The Approve Transactions option is to give the user the rights to give local approval of a transaction. This is typically for priests or the chairman of the financial committee of the location. There are 4 different transactions that a user can be allowed to enter: deposit withdraw, loan draws, and transfers from a deposit account into another deposit or loan payment. By default, you are applying these rights to just the highlighted location, but if you click on the blue button, you will change the button to say that the rights will be applied to all the locations in the user's allowed list. When you click on the Saved button, depending on the setting on the blue button, you will save the rights to just the one location, or to all of the locations that the user has permission to view. To cancel the changes you made, click on the Close Cancel button to exit the form without saving. The last button on the DLSOnline user list form will print a letter to either the highlighted user or for all the users. If you have a user highlighted when you click on the button, you will be asked if you want to print the letter for all the users. If you answer no, then only the highlighted user's letter will print. If you click on yes, or if no user was highlighted, then letters to all the users will print. Special functions are general functions that get run from time to time. One of those is the annual audit of your pooled funds. Before you can use this feature, make sure that you have configured the body of the audit letters in the Maintenance tab using the DLS Financials configuration form in the Audit Letters tab. Here is where you write the letter that explains the audit. These letter bodies print, and then below them the signature, and then the list of the accounts being audited. Once you have saved these letter bodies, then click on the Print Audit Letters in Special Functions to use them. When you go into this form, you will need to select if you are going to audit locations or individual accounts. With locations, you can select the locations that you are auditing, and DLS will print a letter for each selected location, showing all the accounts that they have in DLS, and the current balance of each account as of the confirmation date you select. With individual accounts, you will be able to select several or all accounts for that type of account. If you want to select all accounts, then click on the Clear All button, which will unhighlight all the accounts in the list. When you don't select an account, it tells the system that you want all of them, so only select when you want to do less than all of them. Below the list in the lower right, you will see configurations for the letters. The confirmation date is the month/year end that you select from the dropdown. Only closed months will be in the list. If you check the Use DLS letterhead, then the letters will have the DLS letterhead printed on the page. Unchecked, you are telling DLS to leave space at the top for your own letterhead paper. The accounts printed will include any account that has a zero balance as of the confirmation date. You can filter those accounts by checking the option to filter zero balance accounts. When you are printing letters for account types, you will get a message asking if you would like to group letters to the same location into one letter. Clicking Yes will print the letter for the location with all the selected accounts on it. Otherwise, clicking on No will print a letter for each account. If you select Yes, then it will ask you if you want to print the grand total of all the accounts in the letter as well. Finally, it will ask if you want to print the current interest rates as of the confirmation date on the letters. While previewing the letters on the screen, you can use the keyboard command of Ctrl+P to access the printer menu. This menu will give you advanced print options like changing the printer location, tray, quantity, and select specific pages to print. Even though the confirmation date shows the dates could be closed, if an account is not closed for the month/year that you select, it will not print an audit letter for it. Please make sure that all accounts selected have the month-end close done on them for that date before printing audit letters. Send emails is the process which you will send out any bulk emails from the DLS Financials program. This button will only be available to you if you have configured the email SMTP server in the Maintenance tab using the DLS Financials configuration form in the Email tab seen here. Once everything is configured and you check the SMTP email setup verified, will this button turn on. In the Send Email form, you will need to select if you are going to send emails out based upon individual accounts or for a location. Each account type and location will allow only certain email templates for each. All of them have the broadcast email template, which is just an empty email form to the people who have verified email addresses. You can enter the subject and body of the email. But deposits also have the interest distribution letter template, and locations have the Announce Online Statements template. Each special template will have the subject and body will be filled in with the default body that you set up in the DLS Financials configuration form on the Email tab. You can then edit the message to include more public information if you want, but do not enter any account or location-specific information, as it will go to everyone in the list above. Some special templates may require a date range for the information that you are sending. In other situations, you can filter who gets the email by several options, including the account's interest rate, the location's deanery code, if an account has a balance, location types, classifications, standard lookup numbers, categories, and the status of a pending loan. Once you have selected the locations or accounts and completed all the other information, you can click on the Create Email button to take you to the email form. If you decide not to send an email, then click on the Close button. In the Send Email form, you will see the list of locations or accounts that have valid email addresses and that the email will be sent to. If you see a location or account that you don't want to get the email, then highlight that record and click on the Remove Recipient to delete them from the list. If the subject line is filled in, you can edit it if you would like to include something better. The same goes for the email message to be sent. Since emails are sent as an HTML, you can encode the email with HTML formatting if you know how. The sample here shows that the word DLSOnline will be made into a link to send the user to www.dlsonline.us/demo when they click on it. Depending on the settings in the DLS Financials configuration form on the Email tab, the Send with No Reply address may be checked here. If it is checked, then the address that the email will be sent from will be the No Reply field in the configuration. Unchecked means that it will be sent with your profile's email address as the reply to address. Clicking on the Send Test button will send the email to your profile's email address. That test email will be the same one that the recipients will get, but at the bottom it will show all the email addresses that it will be sent to. After sending the test email, the Send Emails button will turn on for you to officially send the emails to the recipients. The send process could take a little while to run, so don't shut down DLS until it has completed. The Close button will exit the form should you decide not to send the emails. This area is still under development, so if there are other functions, filters, processes, or templates that you would like to see, please contact DLS support to have them added. If you have selected to use custom transaction confirmation letters in the Maintenance tab under the DLS Financials configuration, on the Daily Post section as shown here, the button to configure them will be available to you in the Special Functions area. Normally, DLS prints a generic confirmation letter showing the transactions posted for each location. But you may want more control over what is said in the letters, so DLS gives you the ability to create your own custom letters for each transaction type. When you go into the Custom Letters list, you will see the list of custom letters already configured. If you highlight one of them, the Edit and Delete buttons, if you have permission to delete, will turn on. Clicking on the Delete button will remove the record from the system. Double-clicking on the custom letter or clicking on the Edit button will open the form to edit the switches that trigger the letter. The top field is the path to the Word document that has the letter that you want to print. Use the ellipsis button to select it from the Letters folder out in the DLS Financials folder on the server. Next, you will need to select the account type that this letter will be printing for. There are 4 transaction types for deposit, 6 transaction types for loans, and 4 for investments if you have DLS Plus module. Once you select the account type, the options under the type will turn on for you to select. You can only select one transaction type for each letter. Also, you cannot have two letters for the same account and transaction type. If you want to change the letter for the account and transaction type, either edit the current record or delete the old record before creating the new record. Clicking on the Save button will save the record to the list, and if you click on the Close Cancel button, you will exit the form without saving the record. Once a letter trigger has been created, you can highlight the letter switch record and click on the Edit Letter in order to open the document in Word. It will attach the record query to the document and allow you to place the fields into the letter that you create using the Mail Merge functions of Word. Save the Word document to keep the fields in place, and when the letter is used, the record for the transaction will be filled into the letter with Mail Merge. If you are using fixed-term CDs in DLS, then you will need to process those when the maturity date comes. If any of the CD's maturity dates are approaching within the next few weeks, DLS will notify you when you log into DLS, and if you select to process them at that time, the maturity list will come up at that time. If you tell it no, then you can get to that process via the maintenance menu. Either way, the list of your CDs will show up on the list ordered by the maturity date. The closest dates will be on top of the list, and you will need to highlight the one that you wish to work on to turn on the two possibility process buttons. Payout CD will bring up the form filled out with information about the account and where you can either select a deposit account to transfer the funds to or leave it blank to send a check. When you click on the Closeout button, the transaction will be made to do a Withdraw All to send the funds by check to the location. If you selected a deposit account, then a transfer. All transactions will be created to withdraw all the funds from the CD and deposit them into the selected account. The CD will then be a zero-balanced or inactive account, but not marked as closed if you should use this account again. The Close Cancel button will exit the form and cancel the process, leaving the CD still needed to be processed. Rollover CD will bring up the form filled out with information about the account and where you can enter a new interest rate and change the term to a different one. When you click on the Rollover button, the maturity date will be updated to the new date based upon the current maturity date and the term you selected. If the rate was changed, an interest rate change transaction will be created on the maturity date. The Close Cancel button will exit the form and cancel the process, leaving the CD still needed to be processed. A minor feature of DLS is the ability to print a form that will show suggested repayment options for a possible new loan. The purpose is to give acceptable repayment options that the location can then select from before the contract is actually written and the repayment terms are locked down. To use the function, you can go in from the loan account list or through the loan payment calculator here in Maintenance. The form allows you to enter the description for this possible loan, the amount to be borrowed, the payment period, and the interest rate the loan will have. After completing those fields, you can enter payment amount and have the number of payments calculated or click on the Number of Payments button to switch, where you will enter the number of payments, and the payment amount will be calculated. You can use both calculation types as they are only used to lock down the other field that you need to enter information into. Once you have up to 6 possible repayment options, you can click on the Print button on the lower left corner of the form, and it will print the form for you to send to the location. They can then select from the list their preferred repayment terms. With the DLS Docs module, you are able to create scheduled transactions within DLS accounts. This is handy for transactions that the locations want to happen automatically rather than having to call you each time. From here you can click on the Scheduled Transactions button to see the list of all the scheduled transactions currently active in the system. You can't add or edit any transactions from the list at this point. You can only highlight a transaction schedule and delete it from the system. To edit or add transactions on this list, you need to access this list from the account record itself. In order to get an export of month-end ending balances, you can have the month-end close process do it when you run the month-end close, or you can come here to do it for any month-end close from the past 4 years. From the drop-down, select the month and year that you wish to export balances for, and then click on one of the account types to export that account to your computer. Each file will create the query of the balances, and then you can select how you want the data exported and where. When you are done, then click on the Close button to exit the form. Next on the list is the Reset Lock switches. When someone starts the daily post or the month-end close process, the Process button on everyone's DLS will be disabled to prevent 2 different users from running the same process. Under normal circumstances, when the process has completed, the buttons will come back on because the lock switch has been reset. But if an error happens and the process was unable to complete, then everyone will be locked out until someone comes in to reset the switch. In this form, you will find the 2 lock switches. Only the switches that are set will be enabled for you to reset. If both of them are disabled, you will not be allowed into the form because that is not the issue. Just click on the switch to turn it off. While DLS is stable and calculates interest correctly, there are times when a Recalculate function was not called, and balances will not match. This happens after an error during an update of a transaction or month-end, or when you request DLS Financials support to change the raw data to fix an issue. Understand, you cannot damage your data by doing this process. Just the opposite, in that this will fix any issues by starting with the very first transaction for each account and looping through every single transaction in effective date order to the very last transaction and fix any totals that may be wrong. In this form, you can click on the account type that you want to run the process on. Normally, closed accounts are excluded from this process, but for master users, the option to run the process for closed accounts as well is available. For those users, check it on if you want to include them. The next 4 functions require a higher level of security to be used. Users with rights to interest functions will be able to run these processes. Starting with Change Interest Rate form, which is used to change the rates globally in each account. When you get into the form, you will need to select which account type you would like to change the rates for. The screen will change to show the accounts of that type and what options need to be set to do the process. Note that accounts that are closed, linked to prime, fixed rate, and variable rate will not be on this list. You need to change the rates on these accounts in other ways. All account types can have the list sorted by the location number or the rate. Next, you will need to set the rules for changing the rate. The first is if you want to filter out zero-balanced or what we call inactive accounts. If you check this, the list will filter them out so that they will not be changed. But if you do this and then start using the accounts again, they will remain at their old rate and not at the rate others might be. You will need to enter the current rate that you are changing the accounts from. Doing this will filter the list to only show accounts with that current rate. If you need to change other different rates to this new rate, then you will need to do the process again for those starting rates. The new rate is the interest rate that you are going to change these accounts to. If you have selected to use thousandths of a percentage in the DLS Financials configuration form on the Configuration tab in the Account Maintenance section, then you will be able to change the rate to have 3 digits after the decimal. The default is to allow only 2 digits after the decimal. Next is the effective date for the new rate to start. The date that you enter here is the first date that the new rate will be used to calculate interest. So, if the date is the first, the interest calculated on the transaction entered on the first day of the month will calculate the interest at this rate. The transactions on the last day of the previous month will calculate at the old interest rate. Only amortized loans will have the next options for dealing with the new schedules that will be created. Because the interest rate is changing, the amount of interest calculated and paid for each month will go up or down. So you need to decide if you want the amount paid each period to go up or down and keep the number of payments the same, or if you want to keep the amount the same and have the number of payments go up or down accordingly. You can also have the system print all the new schedules to be sent to the locations after the rate change process. Once you have everything lined up and configured, you can process all the accounts in the list, or you can select only certain accounts to process. When ready, click on the Change Rates button, which will ask if your instructions are correct, and allow you to cancel the process before it is too late. There is no undo process to reverse the rate change. You can only reverse it by doing another rate change for the same date. After running the process, you can print the rate change report showing all the accounts that had the interest changed. It will use the account type and effective date on this form for the report filter. Use the close form when you are done with all your rate changes. Change prime rate is used to change the rate of the accounts that are fixed to the prime rate. In this form, you will enter the effective date of the prime rate change and the new prime rate that the accounts are based upon. When you click on the Update button, you will be asked to confirm, and if you do, then all the accounts fixed to prime will have a rate change transaction created to show the new rate based upon the accounts add to prime rate and the new prime rate. Clicking on the Close button will exit the form and return to the Maintenance menu. A little used function in DLS is the Deposit Interest Tiers. Interest Rate Tiers button will not show up unless you select to use the Deposit Tier system in DLS Financials Configuration form on the Accounts tab in the Deposit Account section. In this area, you will see the list of current tiers and the interest rate they are associated with. If you click on one of the tiers, the Delete and Edit button will come on. Clicking on the Delete button will remove the tier from the system. While the tier is gone, any accounts with that rate will remain, but are no longer be assigned to a tier unless you define another tier for the rate. Double-clicking on the tier or clicking on the Edit button will open the form to edit the tier. The Add button will open the form so that you can create a new tier. Enter the tier number you are assigning and the rate that will be in that tier. Note, you can have one tier level, and you can only assign one rate to a tier. If the rate is already used in a tier, the save will be rejected. Close Cancel button will exit the form without saving it. The Deposit Variable Rate button will take you to the chart of interest rates for each balance that an account may have at the period close of the month-end process. The initial or default rate starts at a zero balance that can't be changed, but the base rate may. Typically, this is the default rate as established in the DLS Financials configuration form on the Accounts tab in the Deposit Account section. If you wish to add a new level, then click on the Add Level button, which will bring up a new level. In that level, you should enter the lowest balance level, and the rate that accounts in that level should be changed to. Any balance equals to that lowest level will be in that level, as well as any balance above it to the next higher balance level. Once you save the record, it will move into the proper position if it is not when you first added the record. You can edit any lowest level amount except zero and any interest rate. If you wish to remove an entire level other than the lowest, then click on the box on the far left of the level, and then click on the Delete Level button if you have permission to do deletes. Once you finish the chart, then you have two options to select from so that DLS knows how you want to apply these rates. By default, the interest is changed for the current period that they had the balance, or at the beginning of the period that is closing. But checking the option Change Rate for next period, the rate will change at the end of the current period that is closing, so that the coming period gets the benefits of the new rate. By default, the average daily balance for the period is used to compare to the chart. But by clicking on the Use Period Ending Balance, you can have it compare the actual period ending balance of the account to look up the rate. The records are saved when you change them, so clicking on the Close button will not cancel any changes, and only closes the form with the settings that they have. Management functions are only needed under special circumstances or allowed for responsible staff. Account contracts configure which document is used for each contract title. In this example, you will first select the type of account that will be able to use the contract that you are creating. Next, you will need to give it a title or name. This is a short description of the contract where the next field is a longer description with more details about what is in it. Using the ellipsis button next to the Path Word Document field, you can select the actual Word document that contains the contract itself. In order to create a new contract record, click on the asterisk button in the record navigation bar, or start entering information in the record with the asterisk with information about the new contract. Once you save the record, you can select it by clicking on the far left box to put an arrow in it, and then click on the Configure button at the bottom center. This will connect the data record to the document and allow you to use the Mail Merge features in Word to enter the fields that will be used in the places within the document that need to be filled in from the record. Save the Word document so that it will be ready to print when select the contract to be printed. If you no longer plan on using a contract, then you can select the record and click on the Delete button in order to remove it from the list of contracts available. The contract file itself will remain at the location stated in the Path Word Document field. Click on the Close button to exit the form. DLS Users List is where the administrator can manage the users to the DLS main program and what rights the user has when they log in. In the list, you will find the names of all the current users in the system. When you highlight a record by clicking on it, the Edit and Delete buttons will become available to you. Delete is only shown when you have the rights to delete from DLS. Edit will open the record in the form so that you can change the information, but the Add button will open the form to add a new record. The Print User List will print a list of all the user records with their ID, name, and rights each user has. There are actually two different forms for editing a user record. One is for an individual data file, which is on the left, and the other you will see when you are using more than one data file with one login ID, which is the one on the right. When you open the form, you will be able to enter the following information into the record. These first 5 fields are all required in order to save the record. The User ID field is now up to 15 characters in length and must be unique. If it already exists, you will be asked if you want to edit the current record or not. If you select to edit it, the rest of the fields will fill in, and the form will change to an edit record form. If you select not to edit, you will need to re-enter a new user ID. Every user ID must be assigned to a specific person. Enter their first and last name into the next 2 fields. You will then enter an initial password for the user of up to 15 characters, which can be simple for now, but tell them to change this password when they are first logged into the system. The user's email address is required so that when they send any emails from within DLS, it will be sent from them. Next are all the areas that you can restrict the user to. At this point, the forms differ, as you see that the one on the right just changed to the second tab to show the user's rights. The main difference is that because there are more than just one data set, you will need to select which data sets from the master list that the user will be able to get into. Double-click on the data set names on the left to move it to the list on the right, which is their data set list. If you get a new data set and want to add it to the master file, then move the mouse pointer over the left list, and you will get a faded edit button below the bottom left order of the list. Move the mouse pointer to it, and click on it to open the list of current dataset names in the first column and the dataset's path and file name on the second column. You can edit any of the current records if they are incorrect, or you can click on the asterisks button on the record navigation toolbar to create a new record. Use the ellipsis button at the end of the data file path and name field to assign it to the name that you gave it. Use the X in the top right corner of the form to exit the form. Once you have the list of files that the user can get into finished, then highlight each file in the user's list and assign the permissions for that file for this user. Location, Accounts, Daily Post, Month End, Reports, and Maintenance tabs will give the user permission to see those tabs on the main screen of DLS and work within them. If you are using DLS Plus Investments, you will also see the Invest Valuation option, which is in the Month End tab. Interest Functions is an extra level in the Maintenance tab that will allow the person to do global interest rate changes. The management functions is also another level of permission that will allow the user to do major changes to the accounts and the entire DLS system. While a person may have permission to work on minor changes in lists and run minor functions, these two areas should be reserved for people that work in the system and understand these functions and how they affect the data and how the program runs. Upload DLS data allows the user to run the function to upload the data to our DLSOnline server. The upload function is used by DLSOnline users to automatically upload their data to their DLSOnline portal. But for everyone else, it will give them access to the Upload Data to Support button, so that if we need your data to investigate issues, you can get it to us securely. Check this if you would like those features turned on for this user. Allow Deletions gives this user the right to see the delete buttons on all the forms, which means that they can delete any records from the DLS program. View-only rights is a secondary right that will only allow them to view the data within DLS. They are only allowed to get into the Location, Accounts, and Reports tabs on the main menu. All other permission checkboxes will be blocked. The final two permissions are only seen if you are using DLSOnline Plus module. The Process Transactions option is to allow the user to process approved transactions into live transactions in DLS. The Transaction Manager will allow the user to approve transactions, but if the option to use fixed user levels is turned on in the DLS Financials configuration form on the DLSOnline tab, then another field will come on that will allow you to select the manager approval level that this user is in. Move Accounts is the function that allows you to move an account from one location to a different location. In here, you will select which account type you are wanting to move, and then you will need to decide just how you want to move it. The option to keep audit trail is defaulted on, which means that you are going to do a transfer rather than an actual move. When checked on, the account will be created in the new location, with the exact same information as it currently has in the old location. Then a set of transfer transactions will do a withdrawal all from the current location's account and do a deposit in the new location's account on the date you have entered in the form. But if you uncheck the Keep Audit Trail, then the system will replace the location link from the old location to the new location in the account and transaction tables. This will remove all evidence that it was in the old location, and it will look like it has always been in the new location. Once you select the type of move, then you will use the drop-down lists to select the location where the account is coming from. This will turn on the next field to select the account that you are going to move from that location. After selecting the account, the field where you will select the new location will become available. If the process is with an audit trail or a transfer, then the effective date of the transfer will need to be entered before the Move button will turn on. Clicking the Move button will start the process. If you decide not to process the move, then click on the Close/Cancel button to exit the form. The next function is similar to the Move option, but is used to move all accounts from one location to another location. This typically happens when a location closes and merges with another location. If two locations are merging to make an entirely new location, then first create the new location record. When you go into this function, there are only two location fields to select from the drop-down fields: the location that the accounts are coming from and the location that all the records are all going to. Once you select both locations, then the Merge button will come on for you to click. The process will work like the No Audit Trail Move account, where it will change the location link numbers for all the accounts in the old location to the new location. This includes even closed accounts. If an account lookup number and description is the same in both locations, you may want to change one of them, as they will both show up in the new location, with the same number and description, making it a little hard to know which one is which. Use the account's comment section as a notation will be made that the account was moved from the old location on the date that you processed the merge. If you decide not to process the merger, then click on the Close/Cancel button to exit the form. Simple amortized loan types only have suggested payment schedules assigned to them. As a location makes transactions that don't match the date and amount on the schedule, the balance starts to become skewed, and the interest calculation doesn't match very well. When this happens, about once a year, the schedules can be reamortized using the current balance of the loan. Enter the date that you want the first payment to be scheduled for on all the schedules, and click on the Reamortized button to start the process on all simple amortized loans only. If you decide not to process the reamortization, then click on the Close Cancel button to exit the form. At some point, you may switch to a new account system and need to switch the GL numbers on all the accounts to the new numbers from the new accounting system. Sometimes a new CFO may want to restructure the GL numbers used for deposits and loans, which will require you to change them in each account as well. There are two different forms that you can use to accomplish the job. The first form is to replace the value in each field with the new value that you enter. Most GL types are the same for all accounts, but some may actually have more than one account for a GL type. Here you can enter the number in each GL type when the number is going to be the same in each and every account that uses those GL types. Leave the ones that you don't want to change blank. Those would be the ones that have more than one GL number for that type. Once you have the fields you need filled in, click on the Replace button to have all the DLS accounts updated to these numbers. If you decide not to process the change, then click on the Close/Cancel button to exit the form. Once you have completed the changes needed for all accounts, or you want to change each old account with a new account, then click on the Change to One-to-One form. In this form, you need to enter the old GL number into the top field, and then the new GL number that you want to replace it with. When you click on the Replace button here, then the function will loop through every GL account and every GL type, looking for the old number, and replace it with the new numbers in its place. You will do this with every old GL number that you need to replace. It doesn't matter which GL type the numbers are used for, as the two numbers should already be for the same type. If you decide not to process the change, then click on the Close/Cancel button to exit the form. When your account gets to a zero balance, it is considered inactive so that you can still process month-end close and interest rate changes as they come up. But if you no longer plan on using the account, it would be best if you mark it closed. Doing this will remove the account from the active account list and move it to the closed account list for the location. It does not mean that it will be removed from the reports menu. Again, it will not remove it from the reports if you close the account, unless you check the filter to remove closed accounts. That is the only time that closed accounts are removed from the reports. Rather than go to each account record, the management function Close Zero Balance Accounts will bring up this form that will have a list of all the locations that contain zero balanced accounts at the top. As you highlight each location, the list of inactive accounts will show up on the list in the lower left corner of the form. If an account was opened with no balance and no transactions were entered to give it an amount, those will not show a last date for the last transaction made on the account. While you can mark those close, you might want to consider just deleting those accounts if they are not going to be used. If you decide to close an account in the list, simply click the Close button for that account, and it will be marked as closed and removed from the list. Once all accounts have been closed for a location, the location record will be removed from that list. A faster process might be to close all accounts where the last transaction date is before the date that you enter. The process will request you to enter a date, and when you submit it, it will confirm the instructions with you. If you proceed, it will loop through all the accounts for all the locations and mark them closed if the last transaction date is before the date you entered. When you are done with this form, or if you want to exit out at any time, just click on the Close Form button. The last management button is the DLS Financial Configuration button. This form will take you through all the configurations that dictate how your DLS Financials will work. You will turn on and off settings that make DLS main program and the DLS online site run and process your data the way you want. Rather than go through this part in this video, there is an entire training video that you can watch for the details about this form, titled DLS Financials System Configuration. Look for it on YouTube on the DLS Financials channel from the Computer Department Incorporated. Thank you for watching. If you need to get more detailed training or still have questions about configuring your DLS Financials, please contact DLS support at 217-697-0105, extension 5, or email support at DLSFinancials.com.